right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Welcome back to episode 2 of the Scotty Might Know podcast, the world's most okayest sports podcast. If you're joining us live, welcome. We are actually also live on YouTube for the first time, which is awesome. I'm really excited about that. And so I've got both chats up. I've got both chats going. So make sure to join in as you can. Write in your comments, your reactions. It was a crazy weekend in the sports world. That's for sure. And so we're going to get right into it. The Chargers did what the Chargers do. And that is find crazy ways to douse all of our hopes and dreams. I was watching that game, and halfway through it, right, we're at halftime, it's 27-7, and I'm texting a friend of mine, and they're like, dude, this is going really well so far. And I was like, it's not. I don't think it is. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, yes, we have the turnovers, but if we didn't have the turnovers, I think we'd be losing this game. The offense wasn't moving the ball. The defense was creating the turnovers, but other than that, they couldn't stop anything. So it was either we were turning the ball over or we were giving up chunks of yards. And I said to him, like, if you're a true Chargers fan, you know we aren't safe yet. And so that was the situation. And so talking about the Chargers, again, episode 2 of the podcast, we're back. These were my immediate thoughts. First of all, Asante Samuel, I can't put any of the blame on him. The kid had an amazing game in his first ever playoff game in the NFL. Those interceptions weren't easy interceptions. And he made plays on all of those, and it was really fun to watch him do his thing. Justin Herbert had a great 3 quarters, and not that he really was much of the problem in the fourth. But if you think about a couple things like the overthrow on Allen, he's wide open in the end zone, and no one's around him, and he throws it over his head out of the back of the end zone. It ends up being a field goal instead of a touchdown. 4-point swing. We lost by 1. Obviously, the missed kick, which I had to laugh. This is no lie. I was sitting there with my phone, typing out as Cameron Dicker was coming out to kick. Well, that would have been, his third field goal of the game? Is that right? Yeah, his third field goal of the game. I'm sitting there typing. It's nice to not have Nick Kading on the Chargers anymore. And right before I push send, he misses. And it was one of the funniest, I was just sitting there just laughing at it. Just, you've got to be kidding me. That playoff game with Nick Kading back in the day where he misses those 5 field goals, we ended up losing by 3 to the Jets. That was heartbreaking, but I'm typing that out. It's nice to have Nick Kading not on the Chargers anymore. And then he misses that field goal, and that really ends up being a huge factor of what happens there at the end of the game. Joey Bosa, that was frustrating. Not only his loss of composure thing, which I have the posts somewhere from when we drafted him, and I said he's obviously a really talented player, really good player, has the potential to be amazing, but he's got a hot head. And I remember posting that when they drafted him, and I'll have to go back and find that. But I can't put all the blame on him because, my goodness, he was getting held the whole game. Just watching that and kind of watching him, if you go back and watch that game, he's getting held the whole game. And then that 2-point conversion, I was very angry when that happened because it false start, there was holding. Not only did the tackle false start, right, move them 5 yards back, they probably don't go for 2 there, but also the tackle had Bosa in a chokehold, and that's when he gets even more mad, and it's just, it was bad. Everything that essentially could have gone wrong went wrong. Down to even like on the last drive where the Jags are driving on the field and Trevor Lawrence turns and throws that ball right into Van Noy's hands. Like, it's right here, and he just drops it. He makes that pick, game over. But everything that could have gone wrong did, and it was painful. It was kind of like, for me growing up, my Chargers era is really in line with Breeze and Rivers, but a lot more with Rivers. And so kind of going through what we sat through in that era, where you're looking at these unbelievably talented teams with Rivers and Gates and Tomlinson, you're 14-2 in the playoffs, and McCree intercepts that ball, and so just kind of being used to those kind of losses, the 5 field goal miss loss, the McCree interception into a fumble into Tom Brady going to the Super Bowl instead of us loss, the pass interference against Kansas City in the playoffs that isn't called and therefore we lose the game loss, just over and over and over again. With this, I think my frustration, why I was so kind of bummed, even though at halftime I was kind of sitting back going like, I could see them pulling something and not winning this game. The reason why it was frustrating is to kind of have Herbert at the helm now and kind of have this new wave of players in. It kind of felt like, no, like this time it's going to be different. And it wasn't. I would say it's not as bad as the loss to the Patriots. That's the worst one ever. This one is definitely second place. Now, in saying that, and we'll get to this in a little bit, the 49ers look unbeatable. The 49ers look untouchable. And so I was kind of talking with a friend the day after, saying like, oh yeah, it's all good because I didn't want a repeat of the Chargers versus 49ers Super Bowl from the 90s, because that team looks incredible. But it would have been nice to see the Chargers make a run to get that win. Now here's the problem. We are going to have to deal with this frustrating take of Justin Herbert not being a good quarterback. Or Justin Herbert, oh yeah, no, Tua is better than Justin. We're going to have to hear that all over again. This Tua is better than Justin Herbert. We're obviously already getting the Trevor Lawrence is better than Justin Herbert. We're going to get the Josh Allen is better than Justin Herbert, even though Josh Allen has 32 combined interceptions and fumbles this year. 32 combined interceptions and fumbles this year. And people are going to say, oh yeah, Justin Herbert's below him. Justin Herbert's below this. That game, other than the overthrow on Keenan Allen, that is the one thing I could say you could put on Justin Herbert. Other than that, it had nothing to do with him. He played a pretty dang good game. And everything around him fell apart. And so what do the Chargers do now? I don't know. I'm past the overreaction, kind of anger, kind of wanting to like get everybody out, fire everyone, release everyone stage that I was in for about a day. And now we're in this, okay, what's actually gonna happen and what's actually gonna go on? I don't know. I could see us making a trade that involves Eckler and Mike Williams to get DeAndre Hopkins, maybe, because he's asking for a trade, as well as, I don't know, I don't know where you go from here because the pieces and the players that are in place are good. I think we're missing one more good linebacker. I think next year our secondary is going to be the best in the league. The defensive line is obviously great. I know people are frustrated with Bosa at this time, but I just don't see how you can offload him right now. It's hard to find a good pass rusher. And I think something like this could really motivate him and the rest of the team to kind of take that next step to be even better next year. Where I think you do a lot of change is obviously who I put most of the blame on in the coaching. I was frustrated watching that second half going, why are we even trying to run the ball? We're not getting anywhere, and all it's doing is just putting the Jaguars in more advantageous situations. I think if you just say we're going to run short crossing routes for this entire second half and just dink and dunk down the field with our passing game, you win the game. But instead we kept running the ball and not going anywhere. When you can't run the ball, you can't stop doing it. I don't know why. The offensive coordinator has to go. Lombardi is his last name. He's got to get booted. That was some of the worst play calling I've ever seen. This whole we're winning so we got to run the ball to waste time attitude, it's why the Falcons blew the lead in the Super Bowl. It's why the 49ers blew the lead in the Super Bowl to the Chiefs. And it's why the Chargers blew the lead this weekend. You don't do that in the NFL. It is not a way to win the game. Because then what you do is you don't go anywhere on first down. You don't go anywhere on second down. And then they pin their ears back and you rush the quarterback on third and you get sacked or you force an incompletion. And that's what happened. We were +5 in the turnover game. We didn't have a single turnover. But because we can't figure out how to call a play that's not a run play, they lose the game. So Lombardi's got to go. Where I'm hesitant is on the defensive coordinator. He did a great job with the cards that he was dealt this year. I don't think you have to boot him. Because if you think about it, they were in so many spots where they could have just given up. They were so injured, the defense was, all year. They were so injured and so beat up, and there were so many times that people were in that you're just like, how are we supposed to do anything with these guys? And so I think you keep the defensive coordinator and say, great job. Hopefully we stay a little more healthy this next year. And whatever. Now, to Brandon Staley. This is 2 years in a row where you've had a heartbreaking loss that comes down to coaching. Now, has he done a good job in the regular season? Yes, he has. He's done a pretty good job in the regular season. But last year, you had that situation where the Chargers and the Raiders were facing at the end of the season, and if they tied, both got into the playoffs, and the Raiders coach admitted he was willing to just take the tie, and then Brandon Staley called a timeout and called this whole thing, and then the Raiders coach said fine, and they went and won the game. Cost us the season over. Then you have the horrible, unbelievable display of coaching in this last game, where you keep running the ball, you don't use your top 5 quarterback in the league, and you end up blowing a 27-0 lead. So in my opinion, and again, I'm kind of removed now from the hating and being angry, but I think I still stand where I stood when that game ended, is he has got to go. Brandon Staley has got to go. You can't have a loss like that and then start the season with that guy on the sideline. I think the players, you can kind of see it on their faces and their reactions in social media and some of the things that were posted and some of the things they said to interviewers. You can tell that they don't trust the coaching staff anymore, and for good reason. They lost them that game. Now, who do the Chargers get? I don't know. I think the whole thing about Sean Payton coming back and coaching in the NFL, I cannot see a coach of that caliber looking at the ownership situation that is the Chargers and saying, I'm going to go work for those guys, which is frustrating. I'm with everybody else on getting the Spanos family out of the building when it comes to the Chargers. Actually, you know what? Here's something I'm going to touch on real quick. If you are a San Diegan and you ride in the boat of, I'm never going to root for the Chargers ever again, I hope they lose every single game, I hate them, I can't believe they left, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. The logic makes zero sense on that argument. First of all, the people making fun of like, oh, there's the away team is always the ones filling SoFi. That happened at Qualcomm, whether you like to remember it that way or not. But every Chargers game that I ever watched at Qualcomm Stadium was filled with the opposite team's fans. And so it happened with us too. And so this whole thing of if they would have stayed, that wouldn't happen. No, it was happening while they were here. Don't try and fool yourself in saying that it was going any other way. Two, we voted to not give them a new stadium. Whether you like it or not, this city as a population said no. When they said, can we build a new stadium? They said, nope. And so they went, okay, then we're going to go elsewhere. And then everyone went, I don't understand why they would ever leave. No. We were bad as a we were bad as a football fan base. San Diego with the San Diego Chargers was bad as a football fan base because you could watch it on live TV. It was an away game every single time. And it's always been that way, whether they've been at Qualcomm or in SoFi or whatever that stadium was, StubHub in the time being. So that's always happened with the Chargers. We did not, it's not like we were any better. And then we voted to not give them a stadium and they left. So if you're in the I'm glad they lost boat, go find a new team to root for and root for that team and just get over the fact that you're mad that the city as a population voted no. They didn't do anything wrong. We said no, and whatever. Where I don't like the Spanos family is I don't think they know how to be good enough leaders to have a successful NFL team. And so I don't care the fact that they moved to LA. That I think that was the right move for them as a franchise. I think they saw that it's not like we have fans that can fill up our stadium here anyway, and they don't want to give us a new stadium, so let's go and create a new fan base, and that's what they're doing, and I'm in full support of it. But the leadership needed to change. I don't think there's much player movement that need. One more receiver could help. One more receiver that isn't a borderline practice squad guy. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are good. The rest of those guys, we need somebody else to play receiver. A third option that is viable and that is good and won't drop passes. And then a running back that can actually be a bruiser up the middle. That can, at least if they're getting hit at the line of scrimmage, can fall forward for a yard or two. So I don't think there's a lot of player movement that goes on. I think we see a different head coach, and I think we see a different offensive coordinator next year, and we'll see what happens with that. Now, for the rest of the NFL, I'm going to kind of go through game by game and kind of talk about what I thought I saw, what I think it means for the rest of the playoffs, and my prediction for the Super Bowl and what goes on then. Stay tuned. I'll be back in about a minute. I'm just going to grab a drink of water, and we will start with Block 2. Until then, Scotty Might Know Podcast. We will be right back. All right, we are back. Let's get this back up on the screen. Boom. All right, so that's the Chargers. Obviously, I'm most invested in them, so I just wanted to spend a little time talking about them, kind of letting out my frustrations and talking about what happens next. If you don't like the Chargers because they left San Diego, then I think that's a weird reason, but we can talk about that later. The rest of the NFL is in an interesting spot now. Especially because of one game in particular. And we still have one more game to go for Wild Card Weekend, and that is Tampa Bay Dallas. We'll get to that in a second. First, the Cincinnati-Baltimore game. Cincinnati looked horrible. I don't think Cincinnati looked good, and which is weird because Cincinnati looked really well the rest of the season. Also, by the way, Lethal, Cody K, the rest of you guys that have been watching, I see you guys. What's up? Nice to see you. I'm going to get to questions and stuff at the end, so if you have questions that you want to ask or any reactions or anything, leave them, and then I'll go to that at the last block that we have. So feel free to chime in there. Yeah, Cincinnati-Baltimore. I don't think Cincinnati looked all that great, which is weird because they looked pretty good for especially the second half of the year. I think the beginning of the year they were figuring out their O-line situation. They figured that out, and then they went on a run there where they looked like, okay, here's someone that can match up well against Kansas City. Obviously, they beat him last year. They beat him in the regular season this year. And then I watched that game, and I was like, oh, I don't know. And again, they are one play away from losing. It's that they try to do the whole goal line sneak thing, and the ball pops out, and they run it back the other way and score, and that kind of ends up being what seals it. If that play goes the other way, Cincinnati finds themselves trying to come back at the end of the game, not Baltimore. Now, do they do it? Does it go to overtime? I don't know from there, but it just was not for a team going against another team that had a third-string quarterback starting. That looked bad. Now, speaking of teams and players that looked bad, what in the Buffalo Bills was that? Oh my gosh. I don't think Josh Allen's good. I will stay on this soapbox until proven otherwise. Josh Allen is not this top 5 NFL quarterback. I think he's Derek Carr kind of tier guy. He will get you some success if you surround him with people, and he's going to have flashes where you go, dang, look at that. But at the end of the day, he's not an MVP candidate. He won't make the Pro Bowl again this year, or at least he shouldn't. He still hasn't been a Pro Bowl quarterback. This is his 5th season, and he's still this turnover machine. If you guys remember, his first playoff game, he's running down the sideline. I think it was his own. I can't remember if it was his own sideline or the opposite sideline. He's running down, and he just decides to chuck the ball over his head. He's still that guy. He has 32 interceptions and fumbles this year. You can't do that. And to, again, a team going against another team with a third-string quarterback that has no business competing because of your 3 interceptions and 2 fumbles are in the game to possibly try and win it at the end. Buffalo doesn't look good. Cincinnati doesn't look good. Jacksonville shouldn't be moving on. Kansas City's going to rampage through the AFC. They're going to go and destroy the Jaguars this week. It's on Saturday. Then next week, whoever scrounges their way out of Cincinnati and Buffalo, I think it's going to be Cincinnati because Buffalo, they're the biggest frauds of the year. And I know we're going to get to Minnesota in a second, and I don't think Philadelphia is all that great anyway. But Buffalo's the biggest frauds of the year. I'm going to say it. And Josh Allen is the biggest fraud player of the year. That's not a good football team. I don't think they have any chance. I might be totally wrong on this. They might come out and show a completely different side of who they are, but that was a horrible game that they are lucky to go. If Buffalo or Cincinnati goes against the Chargers instead of Baltimore and Miami, the only team that the Chargers, they shouldn't have even lost to Jacksonville, but they would have also beat Cincinnati and they would have also beat Buffalo. They look bad. Kansas City is going to win. And then Cincinnati and Buffalo, I'm going to vote for Cincinnati. and then Kansas City's going to beat Cincinnati, get their revenge, and get to the Super Bowl to go against who's coming out of the NFC. Now, the NFC picture isn't fully formed yet. We just know that because the Minnesota Vikings are frauds, and we knew that all along. I think I said that last week. Minnesota has that great record, but I didn't think they were any good. I thought their defense was bad. Kirk Cousins is Kirk Cousins, but they have Justin Jefferson. Now, hey Chargers, take Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, if you told me, let me think about this real quick. If a notification popped up on my phone that Austin Eckler, Mike Williams, Joey Bosa, and Michael Davis, who is probably one of our best corners this year, were going to the Minnesota Vikings for Justin Jefferson, I would be so excited for that. I wonder how long it takes for Justin Jefferson to go get me out of here. Because I think Kirk Cousins is not ever going to go get him anywhere. So we knew that. We knew Minnesota was frauds. It was just a matter of time before somebody beat them. I was wrong on my NFC East take of not a single NFC East team is going to win a playoff game because now the Giants are moving on. And now I think Philadelphia does end up winning a game. I thought it was going to be Tampa Bay going there because I believe that they're going to beat the Dallas Cowboys tonight. I thought it was going to be Tampa-Philly, and I don't think Philly has the tools to beat Tampa. But now, when Tampa beats Dallas, or I guess if Dallas wins, they're going to go to San Francisco, get beat up by San Francisco, and then you're going to see Philly and San Fran in the finals. San Fran's going to make Philly look silly, and then we're going to get a rematch of Kansas City versus San Francisco in the Super Bowl, and I think it's going to be a great Super Bowl because you have the absolute offensive talent that is Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce going against an unbelievable defense, and then an offense that is led by the first ever rookie quarterback to take his team to the Super Bowl with all of those weapons and against a defense that, I don't know. And I could see San Fran blowing Kansas City out, but I could also see that being a super close game. So that is my NFL playoff prediction. That Kansas City rolls Jacksonville, Cincinnati beats Buffalo, and then Kansas City beats Cincinnati. And then the NFC, Tampa beats Dallas tonight, goes to San Fran, gets beat by San Fran, and then Philly Giants, Philly wins, meets San Fran wins, goes to the Super Bowl, and I'm going to pick the San Francisco 49ers to be the NFL Super Bowl champions. That is my football prediction. On Thursday's episode, I actually want to look at the lines. I love looking at the lines for NFL football games as a way to kind of predict what's going to happen. I've never put a bet on a line in a football game, like, Kansas City -2 or whatever. But for me, I really love looking at that in a way where we can kind of predict what's going to happen. Do you think it's going to be this side or that side? And so I think maybe we'll look at that and kind of gear up. And we also will know, is it Tampa Bay or Dallas? I don't think it matters now. The fact that the Giants won, it doesn't matter. If Minnesota had won and they were going to face San Fran and you're going to get Philly, then I think it matters. Because I think Philly would have beat Dallas, but I don't think Philly beats Tampa Bay. So, we will look at the full picture on Thursday, but for now, that is my NFL prediction. We're going to take another quick break, then we're just kind of going to go over any other sports general news. Look at your questions, comments, and all that kind of stuff. I put a poll up on Instagram today, and we'll look at those questions, and then that'll be the end of episode 2. So we'll be right back with Scotty Might Know. Stay tuned, and we will get into your questions and whatever in a moment. All right, we are back. Had to go fill my water bottle that time. Really sorry if that lasted a little longer. Again, what's up? I see people joining in once again on Facebook and YouTube Live. Remember, we are always live on Mondays and Thursdays. I think I'm going to keep them to the afternoons just because the people that are really good at this, that do really good podcasts and really good sports shows, are always in the front half of the day. And so I also like watching those and kind of feeling out what those people are doing and also reacting to their takes. And so I think I'm going to keep these streams to the afternoon. I'll probably put up a poll on Instagram or something which one people would rather have, whether morning or afternoons. But third block today. So we went through the NFL. If you missed that and you're interested in what I think about the Chargers meltdown and the NFL playoffs and what's going to happen and what did happen, then you can watch this back a little bit. When the stream ends, you can always just go back and watch the replay, and we will get that posted. Also, the Spotify and kind of audio only bit of this podcast is going to get started in this next week, so be on the lookout for that. I want to find a certain post that was made by Shaq, actually, on Twitter. And, excuse me, when last episode I talked about kind of like the generations of sports and how the current generation is the best generation of sports we've ever seen. And they would beat any other decade in their respective sports. So, why is that important? Why am I bringing that up? Because Shaq posted this. If you can't read this, it says, Shaq, 4-2, talking about a 7-game series. You already know who I'm with. Don't ask me also who's guarding me. Valid question. Who in NBA history is going to guard Shaq? I agree with that statement. But if you look at this picture, we've got Steph, current. LeBron, current. Embiid, current. Kevin Durant, current. Giannis, current. If I was building a current great team to go up against any other decade, I think I would pick this team. I'm trying to decide, is it Embiid or is it Jokic from the Nuggets? And I think Embiid is the starter. So here's the thing that I always talk about with people when it comes to decades and why this decade would win in every sport. And I said last week, and I'll say it again, basketball would be the biggest gap. That's where you would see the most blowouts. And the reasoning why is you go to any decade, you go to the 2000s, you go to the 90s, you go to the 80s, whatever, you can probably pick out a great starting five. But once you get past that and you go, okay, who's on your bench, then you're just starting to run out of people. Right now, the fact that we have to decide on either Joel Embiid or a 2-time NBA MVP on which one's starting and which one's on the bench tells you as much as you needed to know. Also, Luka isn't in this graphic. Klay Thompson, James Harden, who else? You've got, I'm completely blanking. Anthony Davis is not on this graphic, right? So that's one part of this, right? But if you say 5v5, I still think modern decade wins. And this post actually proves and helps my point. Why? Look at the bottom team. That's not a decade team. That's not a 90s, 80s, 2000s, even 2010s. Like, this is a, let's see, 2000s, 80s, 80s, 2000s, 90s. So to create a team that people think would actually be competitive against the modern day basketball athlete, you had to span NBA history and grab 5 guys that are all top 15 players from NBA history to put to go against the modern day team. This helps my point. Thank you, Shaq, for driving this home. You know what? For that, oh, I thought I was logged in. We'll do that later. I'll get you a retweet on that later. Greatest number 1 picks ever. Didn't read this. 2003. Yeah. I like it. All right. Back to other news. Quickly on baseball, there's not much going on. The Padres got Nelson Cruz, but that's old news. I think there's a couple more moves they have to make. The Carlos Correa thing got to be one of the funniest baseball storylines I've ever seen. There's really not much going on in baseball land, and really nobody cares right now about baseball. If you're like, oh, I'm interested in baseball right now and what's going on, and I'm not paying attention to the NFL playoffs, and I'm not paying attention to the NBA that's in full swing. Like, I'm sorry, I don't have much for you. There's just not. The main free agency period has happened. I don't want to recap that. Everyone's caught up on that. I started this podcast too late to really give live analysis of that. I do have this. Actually, I will say this about baseball, and I hope he's watching. I don't have a way to know if he's watching or not, but I have a bet that with my friend that whatever the line is for Aaron Judge and his home runs next year, I am going to a bet between me and him. I'm taking the under. I told him there's no way Aaron Judge is coming close to that number again in his career. He's a big New York Yankees fan. He's from New York. And so obviously, we're celebrating the Giants win. That's cool for him. But I told him I'm taking the under. He's not having that year again. So that's the only real MLB thing that I have. I'm really excited to see what that line ends up being. But I am taking the under. So that's really not much going on. Basketball, this whole kind of what's going to happen with LeBron after this year thing is getting interesting. He just kind of said that he wants to finish with the Lakers, but there was all those rumors swarming around. Did he get traded to the Warriors? I don't think there's any way that would ever happen. But kind of where is he going to go? What's going to happen when his son gets to the league and kind of all this kind of different stuff is very interesting to me. Also, he's coming real close to the record for most points in regular season history. He already has regular season and playoffs combined, and the fact that no one made as big of a deal as that is weird. Like, should have been a huge deal, and it just wasn't. But when he gets that, he's the GOAT. You can't argue it to me otherwise. I really won't listen to, like, oh, no, it's Michael Jordan. No, it's not. It's really not. Please stop with that. I could listen to some Kareem arguments. I would definitely listen to some Kareem arguments. But I'm not gonna. The moment LeBron passes Kareem for the scoring record, it really at that point it's gonna be a little comical to keep arguing Michael Jordan is the greatest. But I mean, I guess we'll do it. And like I said, I have the series coming where I'm gonna talk about why Michael Jordan isn't the GOAT, the case against Jordan. I'll release that probably here in a couple weeks. But that's on its way. Steph Curry went off again and exploded for 41 points today against the Wizards, which we need more of that. And here's the thing. He is posting his MVP numbers from a couple years back again. And I think as long as they finish top 4, he's going to get considerable MVP votes. But I just don't see that happening. I don't know what it is that's wrong with the Warriors, but they gotta figure it out. I'm on the side of a big time trade, and what I mean by a big time trade is Draymond, probably. We need a big who's actually a big and can actually rebound. Because I watched that game where Steph came back against the Suns. And they made it close at the end, but they were getting blown apart in the middle of that game because they couldn't get a rebound. So we'll see on that. Again, today's episode was mostly NFL, obviously, because playoffs are in full swing, and it's the Monday right after the first playoff weekend. But for time's sake, I want to move on to some questions that we got from today. Again, go follow the Instagram. It's right there. Because I'm going to be posting polls and stuff like this to get questions and input on things, as well as highlights from the stream. So go check it out. But what we're going to do right now is kind of look at different things. All right. Soccer, hockey. Don't ever talk to me about hockey. It's one of the worst sports on the face of the planet. If you play it, that's cool. I bet it's so fun to play. And I'm not going to say that it's easy to play. I'm not going to say that I feel like I could ever go play it. But I can't stand watching it. I really just, it's so boring. Oh, but there's fights. There's not. And oh, there's big hits. Not even close to the hits that we see in football. I don't like hockey. Soccer wins every time. I said this in my last episode. 2023 is the year that I become a soccer fan. I kind of picked a team and went kind of like the underdog, no one pays attention to route on that by picking Lille, just because I like Timothy Weah. I'm still doing my research. I'm gonna pick a Premier League team as well, and kind of go back and forth between watching the two leagues and paying attention to those two teams. But soccer has really, I've really started to become a fan of soccer, and main reason why was because of that was one of the best, maybe the best World Cup as a whole we will ever see. That was so much fun. And so I'm paying attention to soccer now. So soccer wins every time. Thank you for that question. Let's see. Question number 2. Is LeBron top 3? LeBron's the greatest basketball player to ever play the game. If you're still here or if you didn't watch last week, my ranking goes LeBron, Kareem, Kobe, Jordan. So I don't think Jordan's in the top 3 at all. I don't know why people put him there. Oh, he has 6 championships. Yeah, for 6 years. There was 2 spans of 3 years where he was good, and that's it. LeBron's been great his whole career. Kareem was great his whole career. Kobe was great his whole career. Jordan was good for 6 years, and that was it. And people don't pay attention to that, and people don't pay attention to the stint with the Wizards where he was not good. Aaron Judge will hit a minimum of 50 home runs this year. There it is. That's what I'm talking about. This is what I was just talking about. If 50's the line, right? If you're saying does he hit over or under, we'll call it 50 and a half. Actually, no, we'll call it 49 and a half. And so if 50 or over, you win. 49 or below, I win. I'm picking the under. I don't think he's going to get to 50 this year. I think maybe once or maybe twice in the rest of his career he'll hit 50 again. No. I'll take the under. Question number 4. What do you love most about watching sports / being a sports fan? It is something that brings people together. Obviously, like stuff like the Super Bowl, the World Cup, you see that. It is something that everyone can kind of watch and react to at the same time. And when there's funny things that happen or amazing things that happen, it's like, oh yeah, everyone saw it, everyone watched it, and so that was really cool. And so it's a unifying thing. It's also something where people can discuss and have quote unquote arguments about without like ruining friendships, I guess. Because I feel like other things that you can argue about, just people, the world is so volatile now that it'll just get to a point where like, oh, I'm never talking to you again. That just doesn't happen with sports. What should the Chargers do during the offseason? I already kind of talked about that. There's not a lot of player movement that I think should happen, other than maybe trying to go after DeAndre Hopkins. I need to look at the free agency pool. Maybe that's what we'll do on Thursday for the NFL piece, is kind of look at the free agency pool and look at the teams that aren't in the playoffs and kind of what I think is going to happen there. But they should get a different head coach and a different offensive coordinator, but keep the defensive coordinator. Super Bowl matchup prediction. Already gave this earlier this episode. Niners, Chiefs, and I think the Niners will win. Let me just refresh to make sure we haven't gotten any more. I don't think we have. And so, therefore, that will be all for today. I hope you guys have a fantastic Monday and a fantastic week. I'm looking forward to see kind of what plays out tonight with Tampa Bay and the Cowboys. But until then, that is all for this episode. Episode 2 is over. that's it for today. So again, my name's Scotty. This is the Scotty Might Know podcast. We will see you on Thursday for the live stream. And tonight, we'll see what happens. But I think it's going to be Tampa Bay. We'll see you Thursday. Peace.